Hi everyone, my name's Eilish. I'm an SEO account director at Tug Agency, and today I'm going to be talking to you about SEO in a sustainable future. So today we're going to cover all of the ways that there is a clear link between the environment and our industry, and that link is threefold. So our industry is based on the internet, and there is a huge environmental impact from the internet existing, being, doing. And there are different ways search engines are changing and different search engines that are adapting to reduce our impact on the environment, and there are different things that we need to do as SEOs and brands to fall into line with that. And also people, consumers, customers, people who use the internet are becoming more and more interested in environmental products and sustainable brands. So we need to make sure that as SEOs and as brands, if we are sustainable, if that is where our company is moving, we are being easily found on the internet for those queries by those searchers. So SEO in a sustainable future, we're just going to cover the different things that means. So sustainable surfing, what is it, how does it work, and how can we make surfing the web more sustainable? And different ways people are using the internet now through kind of disruptive search engines like Ecosia, and then understanding what that sustainable search opportunity really is. So firstly, sustainable surfing. So we think of everything happening in the cloud and everything on the web not really having a physical impact, but there is a huge environmental impact of surfing the web. So using your smartphone for just an hour a day, I use mine for 5 or 6 hours a day, and that produces 1.25 tons of CO2. So if everyone who has a smartphone use their smartphone like this just for an hour a day, and I think a lot of people are more like me than not, that's the equivalent to 13.8 million more cars on the road in terms of the pollution and the environmental impact that is going to be giving out. And even Google knows that the environment is going to be impacted by the internet and by computing and by people using those things. So Gary, in a recent Search Off the Record podcast, said computing in general is not really sustainable. So Google is making changes to make itself more environmentally friendly and to make its products and services more environmentally beneficial for users and its customers. So they are making infrastructure changes, so they have their own custom servers, they heat them with outside air, and they say that they are more sustainable than the average. They've developed a custom cloud region picker, so for anyone who is using Google Cloud to run their business through their CDN and through their hosting, as well as being able to pick based on latency and cost, Google now allows an option for you to pick your custom cloud region based on how much CO2 it emits, so being able to let you make a more green choice for your business and your users. In the search results pages, so moving more to the web, there are obviously lots of different tools that Google pushes to the top of the search engines that we have to compete with, as well as other companies and brands. And one thing that Google is doing is highlighting green flights via Google Flights. So now people can sort their flights and search flights not just by cost and how quick they are, they can also make a choice based on how much CO2 that flight is going to emit. With flights usually comes hotels, so if you work in the hospitality sector, you have a hotel, you want to be performing well on Google and get that engagement from people who are maybe making more sustainable, green-minded choices, there is now sustainability sections on green hotels that you need to communicate to Google to have that information there. And another thing that is going to impact us from a content and tech point of view potentially is that Google is considering reducing refresh crawl frequency to reduce computing impact on the planet. So there are two types of crawls, like many of you may know. There is Discover, where Google discovers new content, and Refresh, where Google goes back over content that it's already gone over to see if there's any changes and to decide if it's going to index those changes. And this is the crawl that Google is thinking of reducing. And so they're thinking of reducing refresh crawls because they've already gone over the page. So if you think about every page that you've got on your website, and if you think that there is a negative environmental impact every time Google crawls it, you might want to it does make you think, does Google need to crawl my pages that much? And that is kind of where Google's head's at. So refresh crawl reduction can have an impact, particularly on larger sites, because it might mean that it doesn't find content changes as quickly. So if you are a news site like The Guardian and you have your feed pages that are talking about PMQs that day, and Google has reduced its refresh crawl rate, it might not crawl and therefore index all the changes you're updating that page with throughout the day. Or if you are a larger site and you are making meta changes, you're doing experiments on your site to see if they're going to perform a bit better. If Google reduces its refresh crawl rate, it will take longer for those changes to appear in search, which means it will take you longer to get the data from your experiments back. So Google does, have its ways of working out how often it crawls your site and what pages it should crawl. It looks at things like size, update frequency, page quality, and of course relevance. But without direction from you, Google will just try to crawl all or most of the URLs on your site. And that's not always a good thing, because it means that Google's wasting time. It can affect if the correct pages on your site are being crawled. But then if we are thinking every time Google's crawling your site, it's having a negative impact, if you've got pages on your site that shouldn't really be crawled and definitely shouldn't be crawled more than once, you need to think about how you can communicate that to Google to stop that from happening. So one thing we can do is reduce, reuse and recycle content, and this is really important, not just because I wanted to use this phrase in a title slide. If your site is full of duplicate or outdated content, it can increase your perceived crawl capacity and just makes Google waste time crawling irrelevant pages. The guys at Google said, that often when they're crawling, they'll come across 404 pages. For no reason. So we don't want Google to be doing that. So recommend to reduce this, you want to clean up your site with a content audit. And so a content audit helps you identify duplicate content and streamline it. And when we talk about duplicate content, we don't just mean if someone's accidentally uploaded the same blog twice. It can mean all the parameter pages that are created when people are engaging with your site and filtering things out. It can be if you've got a list of the top things to buy your dad for Father's Day for the last 27 Father's Days, or if it's a review of a festival that happens every single year. And these are kinds of the duplicate content that Google may not need to crawl again and again. And things you can do to make sure Google doesn't do that is if you've got lots of parameter pages or similar content that happens every single year, you can pick master versions, canonicalize it. If you've got reams and reams of similar guide pages, you can pick the best one and redirect everything, or you can consolidate them all into a newer beast page if you want them all to be found and you think there's value there for people. And you can always remove useless content. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to reduce the amount of useless content on the internet, right, for people, and to make sure Google's not wasting time on it. So if people haven't been on a page for 5 years and there's no search volume around it anymore, you can get rid of it. That's fine. Just make sure that you redirect them. Don't leave 404s in there. So that's what Google's doing now, and it's what it's thinking about doing in the midterm that might impact us. But there are lots of things that might come, and we all know that the internet and Google changes quite quickly. So one thing they might develop are ranking algorithms for greener servers or ones with less environmental impact. So we know that Google interacts with our servers, can tell them there's a server failure, so what's to say they're not going to develop some sort of technology that will be able to see that your server is good or bad for the planet as far as servers can be. Another thing they are thinking of is ranking algorithms for websites or companies that are greener. So I did come up with this on my own, and then 5 days ago, John Mueller had a Twitter conversation with someone where he said that this is something that they are thinking about, but it's tricky. But tricky for Google, they might overcome it. So something to think about as businesses and search engines, are meant to be helping people make greener choices. They might help companies who are better for the planet rank above those who are worse for the planet. And as we become more aware of our own environmental impacts on the planet, and as we understand more and more the impact of the internet on the planet, are people going to become happier with lower resolution experiences? Will people actually move away from wanting things sharper and faster and have things a little bit slower and fuzzy? So that's kind of where Google could be and where Google's head might be at. But as people who search and as people who want other people to search, what are some more immediate fixes that we can do to reduce our environmental impacts on the planet and engage with people who are really concerned with the environment? We could think about Ecosia. So Ecosia is a search engine that many of you may know and some of you may not know about. It is kind of like Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo's hippie younger sibling who just wants to make the world a better place. Like that will, yeah. So they've been around since 2009 and they've grown a lot, especially in the last few years, and they've now got 16 million active users. And that's not just individual people who are using it. It's a big hit with a lot of institutions, particularly universities. It's the default search engine for like the University of Edinburgh, the University of Ohio. Ecosia Campuses is rallying all the students to make universities make it the default search engine. So when we think about the students of the future, there's a lot of people who are committed to Ecosia who are only going to grow and develop and go to companies and make it the default search engine. So Ecosia, really great for the planet. 80% of their profits go towards planting trees. It sounds like a really good thing. And that's great for the planet and it's great for students. But what does that actually mean for SEOs and for brands, for your traffic? Well, if you are a green or sustainable business, or if you're a company that is moving more towards that, or you've got those kinds of products, if you rank highly on Ecosia, you're going to be found by people who are pretty high intent for what you're offering. If someone is actively installing Ecosia, they're actively using it over Google, over a bigger search engine, they're already further down that conversion funnel for products that are going to be good for the planet. And also optimizing for Ecosia can help improve your rank and quality score for bigger partners. So completely non-green bonus there. There is a bit of a misconception that the Ecosia search engine results page, the SERP, is not as sophisticated and doesn't offer as many opportunities as the Google search engine results page, but that's not the case. So we can see that we've got the same query here on both Google on the left and Ecosia on the right. You'll be able to work it out. And right at the top for both, there are shopping results, but they're from different brands. The ads look completely different, and interestingly, on Ecosia there's a knowledge panel, and that's not there for Google. So that does give us some insight into how different the algorithms are, and what they're interpreting that search intent for this query to be. A little bit further down the page for the same query, we can see that there are really varied results on both. So Google's got its people also asks, it's got some image results, but Ecosia, really high up on page 1, has YouTube results. So if you are a brand and you're struggling to rank on Google for search terms, you should go to Ecosia and see if there are other ways that you can rank. So if you've got some really good image content or video content, talk to your social teams, optimize it, and try and rank that way and engage with people through different kinds of media. And something Ecosia's got, which they're talking about earlier, how it might be up to search engines to help people make more green and informed choices. And Ecosia has a green leaf that it puts next to brands that it believes are genuinely good for the planet to encourage click-through. So people want to work with these brands that are doing good for the world. On the other side, they do have a little coal factory icon that they put next to brands that they believe don't do good things for the planet, so to discourage click-through. So, bit of a warning there, I guess, for some companies. But if you do want to rank on Ecosia, which I guess everyone should, it's got a really good audience base there. We need to kind of understand how it works. Like Google, we'll never know exactly what goes on, but we can make some guesses. So studies and reports tend to show that Ecosia likes exact keywords and keyword ordering, so great for e-com sites, great for product pages. It likes content that's attractive for social sharing. So we just saw YouTube ranks really well for a certain query. So have a look at what video content you've got, what infographics you've got, and be really creative with it. And meta titles and descriptions. So meta descriptions aren't what they used to be on Google, but as we saw, the meta descriptions on Ecosia were much bigger. There's a lot more inventory there for you to play with. So take advantage of that and make sure that you're writing compelling copy. And why should we be doing all of this? Just to save the planet? No, like the bottom line. People want to buy sustainable things. So at Tug, we conducted a survey last September looking at Brits' behaviour and retail habits, and 81% of consumers have become increasingly concerned about the environment and environmental issues since the pandemic hit. So 81%, it's a big number. And this is translating into many more sustainable searches. So most Brits do pay attention to sustainability and environmental efforts of retail brands, and that's translating to 37% of them searching more and more for sustainable retail brands online. And looking at where this is now compared to where it used to be, there's a 53% increase in sustainable fashion searches. So, fast fashion is really not in vogue anymore, and now people are moving more towards t-shirts that do last a little bit longer and a bit more make, do and mend, and that is reflected in the search trends. And it's not just a vanity issue, it's not just tokenistic buying, it really is people changing their buying habits and also companies changing their operational habits. So there's been a 213% increase in sustainable packaging searches. So that isn't just a recycled shoe, that is thinking about what is that recycled shoe coming in from the consumer's point of view and also from the business's point of view. And do consumers really prioritise sustainability when it comes to making that purchase? After they've done all the searching and the umming and the ahhing, do they really want this? 30% do. When it comes to getting their card out, sustainability is what they are looking for. 47% of people say that it plays a factor and it is something that may push them to buy something or not, and only 22% of people we surveyed said that sustainability doesn't impact their decisions at all. So overall, people really are prioritising it when it comes to purchasing. But people don't just believe that you're green, no. People are discerning, they want to find out if you walk the walk, and they investigate your eco-credentials online. So apart from Gen Z, who do most of their research on Instagram and TikTok, millennials all the way through to the silent generation research into brand sustainability claims via web, desktop, mobile search. So if you are claiming to be green, if you are claiming to be sustainable, you need to make sure that you're talking about that and that you're writing about that and that it is clear on your site and off your site. So how do you rank those green queries? Well, obviously make sure that you're including those queries and keywords. So say things like organic, say things like sustainable, net zero, carbon neutral. If you are it, say that you are it. Moving on though, you can't just do that, obviously. You need to think EAT, expertise, authority and trust. You need to show that you can back up what you're saying. So do like Ecosia, publish your financial reports, look at people also ask queries. Are people asking questions about your brand and your sustainability motives and your supply chains? Look at that and create content around that and answer those queries. And just make sure that you are talking about it. So have some content pillars on your site that back up your sustainability, your organicness, your recycling habits. Make sure that it's all there, that you're pushing that and that people can see it and engage with it. So overall, Google is making changes that will affect us. So it's changing its servers, it's adding more tools to the top of search results pages, and it's thinking about changing how it crawls our sites. As SEOs and companies who own websites, this is going to make work for us. Consumers are developing more sustainable habits. So we spoke about Ecosia, it's got a growing user base, and people are making changes, not just using Ecosia, but online and offline. People are changing how they behave for the better of the planet. And one of the ways that they are changing is they want to buy more sustainable products. So it's going to become more and more competitive to rank for those sustainability related keywords. And overall, we are all responsible, not just as marketers, not just as SEOs, but as people. And if we are in this space where we are working with the internet on a day-to-day basis, if we are encouraging people to use websites and stay on websites for as long as possible and do click and buy and everything, we need to really be thinking how we can change and how we can reduce the impact that we are having on the planet. if you've not been taking notes, you can download our sustainable SEO slides here, just on the Tug website. You'll be able to find it. And if you want to talk SEO or sustainability or anything really with me on LinkedIn, you can add me or just drop the guys at the agency an email. Thanks so much for listening to my talk. Have a great rest of the online event.